Thank you, Senator Dastyari. Senator Bernardi.
Well, thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. From the outset, may I congratulate all my colleagues in the Senate on their election. We have a lot of work to do as a collective team. We have differences of opinion and differences of views, but if we act and work towards getting outcomes for the people of Australia, I think we can have a productive parliament. But to say that, Mr Acting Deputy President, is not to hide the fact that we do have what I would perceive to be a crisis of confidence in politics around the world and also here in Australia. Successive elections have seen the growing rise of the minor parties, a growing crossbench in this place and in the other place, as Australians have moved away or taken their primary votes away from the major parties. Of course, I accept and I welcome the will of the Australian people in this regard, and once again I congratulate all my colleagues on their election to this place. They have been rightfully endorsed by the Australian people. But what the minor parties are actually doing is tapping into a wide cross-section of community concerns about the direction in which our country is headed. The government, quite rightly so, is concerned about debt and deficits, and it's about getting the budget back on track, not just for our benefit today, but for the benefit of future generations. We also, quite frankly, have to restore faith in politicians and the political process, because if we don't, we risk losing something that is truly significant, and I won't say unique to Australia, but it is a very special part of Australia's body politic. And as I said in my 2014 address to the National Press Club, broken promises, politicians' perks, spin over substance, scandals, little perceived difference between the major parties and a lack of focus on the issues that truly matter all add to the gaping chasm between politicians and the people. We've just had a double dissolution election. Some people and many of us were optimistic that this would enable the country and the body politic to embark upon a fresh start. I regret to say that fresh start hasn't occurred. And one of the most damning things that has already condemned aspects of this parliament is the stench of possible improper use and requests for money by a member of the ALP, and that is Senator Sam Dastyari. Now, Senator Dastyari, in October of last year, declared that he had received compensation from a Chinese-linked company for a debt, a personal debt caused by his own mismanagement of his office resources that he owed to the Commonwealth. This is a senator, a personal debt owned by a senator being paid by a third party that is linked to a foreign company. Now, Senator Dastyari overspent a relatively modest amount on his staff travel budget of $1,670.82. This was a debt that he was required to pay. And yet Senator Sam Dastyari, one of the highest paid officials in the country, in the top 1% of income earners, couldn't find it within his own resources to pay back the Commonwealth $1,670.82. For some reason which he hasn't explained to this chamber or to the Australian people, he got the top education institute to pay his bills. Now, this education institute has made donations to both sides of politics, and making a political contribution to a political party is a legitimate conduct that has been accepted as appropriate. But never in my recollection, never in my memory, has it been appropriate for an entity linked to a foreign government to pay the personal debts of a member of parliament. And anyone who thinks that can be justified in any way, shape or form, I invite them to come into this chamber and explain it today. I invited Senator Dastyari to come in and explain it, and he gave a statement saying, yes, he did the wrong thing. But let me tell you, it is not just accepting our responsibilities and requirements under the Parliamentary Act to disclose benefits or various other support mechanisms that we may have received in the course of our duties. We owe the people of Australia our good judgment. And how can the manager of opposition business, stand up here in this chamber and say his judgment should be relied on by his colleagues or by the people of Australia or the ALP nationally, when he doesn't see it as wrong to get reimbursed for a personal expense by a company linked to the Chinese government? This is absolutely wrong, and Senator Dastyari needs to come in here and provide a full disclosure of how the circumstances came to be. It's simply not credible that the Top Education Institute of Australia just discovered that Senator Dastyari had a debt to the Commonwealth and thought, oh look, I'll pay those bills for him. Did Senator Dastyari write to them and ask them? Did he go and visit them? Did he call them in one of his extravagant phone calls, which cocked up $15,000 to the taxpayers? How did the circumstances come to be that an organisation with very close links to the Chinese government, where the head of this organisation has had photos taken with a premier of China, with an education minister, who received a special sanction from the Chinese government as the only approved non-specialist education provider in 2013 by the Chinese government? How did Senator Sam Dastyari have his expenses reimbursed by this organisation? We are right to question this. There is a question of judgment, and this is not a question of political ideology. This is a question about anyone in this place who thinks it's okay to go and ask a company linked to a third entity, another country, a sovereign nation, to pay their personal bills. It has the stench of corruption. And how deep and how widespread this is the question that needs to be asked. Because you go through Senator Dastyari's statement of interests, it all seems linked to the Chinese government. Typical Labor. They leave others to pick up the tab, whether it be a catering for afternoon tea sponsored by the Australia-Chinese Relations Institute. For goodness sake, can't a senator, a highly paid senator that's a good political operator, pay for the afternoon teas himself? The links between Senator Dastyari and the Communist Party of China is extraordinary. Yes, they've been disclosed in his register of interests, but there is a pattern here, a pattern that says we're right to question what influence, if any, a foreign power has over Senator Dastyari when they're sponsoring not only his travel, not only his hospitality, but they're paying in one way, shape or form or supporting his personal bills. Now, Mr Acting Deputy President, I don't know the truth about Senator Dastyari's involvement. I don't know the truth about whether Senator Dastyari has disclosed everything he should. But I do know that under no circumstances could any person that is fit and proper to hold the position of manager of opposition business in this place think it's okay to have his personal expenses paid by a company linked to a foreign government. As I said, Mr Acting Deputy President, this is not about political donations per se. This is about a personal benefit, a benefit that has been paid by a foreign-linked corporation to cover someone's personal expenses, which were incurred in the course of their political duties. Now, earlier today, Senator Wong, quite rightly so, took me to task for a rhetorical question about who pays her mortgage, as she was defending Senator Dastyari, and I withdrew that. But the rhetorical nature of the question was simply because Senator Wong pays her own mortgage, as we all do. So how can she defend the fact that Senator Dastyari has a debt to the Commonwealth and it's paid by people linked to the Chinese government. That is a judgment issue. And if Senator Wong wants to defend that, or anyone else on that side, then they have judgment issues too. And the only answer is for Senator Dastyari to stand aside from his position as manager of opposition business in this place, for the ALP to conduct a full inquiry and ask Senator Dastyari to fully disclose to this place all the dealings he's had and what other remuneration or benefits he may have received and not disclosed, to explain the nature of the benefits more fully than what he has disclosed. Because we're quite right to question whether we should undermine the integrity of this parliament, the confidence of the Australian people into the incorruptibility of those that are here, for a seemingly minor amount of $1,600. The amount doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's $1,600 or $16,000. What matters is the principle applied here. The manager of opposition business couldn't manage his own office budgets. He couldn't manage his own office budgets and had a debt to the Commonwealth. That in itself is not unknown in this place. But what is unknown in this place is expecting a foreign entity to pick up your personal bills. Other senators, and I don't have to name them, other senators have worked out debt repayment plans because mistakes can happen. This is not a mistake. This is a grievous error of judgment that brings into question the influence of foreign entities into our body politic. And just yesterday, the Australian Financial Review had one of the significant donors to both major parties complaining in a Chinese language paper that they weren't getting enough value for money out of their donations. Now, this is the same individual, as I said, who's donated to both major parties through their company, but this is the same individual who also bailed out Senator Dastyari from legal obligations he had. And that was fully disclosed as well. But the fact is, it comes back to it. How does a foreign company, foreign-controlled entity with close ties to another sovereign government, how does it come to pass that they are paying the legal bills of a senator?
That's amazing.
It's got the stench that should inflame the nostril of every single person in this place and every single person outside of this place. The only conclusion I can draw, in the absence of any other information coming to hand, is that Senator Dastyari is not fit for his current position, and he should question whether he's suitable and appropriate to remain as a senator in this place. We clearly have a problem. Personal benefits have been given to a senator by people associated with foreign entities, and one of those people have complained in recent days about not getting enough value for their money. What did they expect? Just what did they expect? Is it okay for individuals to travel at other governments' expense? Yes, it is, because in this place we go on delegations and we cooperate in official functions all the time. And maybe on occasions it's right for some of us to avail ourselves of information by going to other lands and at sponsored events that are formally done. But when there is a pattern, a historical pattern of largesse, personal benefit, that has been directed in the direction of a senator, we're right to ask, do we have a bigger problem here? You know, Mr Acting Deputy President, one of the stories doing the rounds is from an ALP member who was going to Hong Kong to meet with someone. And he received a phone call from a close associate of the Chinese embassy suggesting they don't meet with that individual. Quite rightly so, they said, no, I'm going ahead with it. And yet when they were in Hong Kong, about to meet with this individual, one of their colleagues from the ALP rang them up. Rang them up and begged them not to go because it would upset the Chinese embassy. Who do you think that person was? I'd like them to come in here and explain the circumstances. I'd like them to explain why our own members of parliament are being warned off by their own colleagues from meeting with individuals because it might upset the local embassy. Do we have a problem in this country? I don't know. I don't know how, if I keep tugging this thread, how deep and wide and far it's going to unravel. But what I can tell you is that the aroma, the scent that is emanating from just this one small, seemingly innocuous payment of $1,600 and the pattern from which it's attached makes Senator Dastyari's position as manager of opposition business entirely untenable. He needs to come in here and he needs to provide a more full explanation than what he did this morning, saying, I disclosed it, I'm within the parliamentary requirements, you know, it was just an error of judgment. There's much more to that than this, than that. How did it come to pass that another company paid his legal bills? How did it come to pass that Top Institute Australia were made aware of Senator Dastyari's obligations and debts to the Commonwealth? What sort of a member of parliament thinks that it's okay to take the fat salary and all the benefits and perks that go with it, but not repay the $1,600 yourself? That person is not fit to occupy the position he currently occupies. And until a full explanation can be brought forward, I think it's incumbent upon the ALP to ask Senator Dastyari to stand aside. If he won't do that, then we need to have a much broader investigation into what is going on with the body politic in this country. I make no bones about it. I have been on the record for years saying we need donation reform. We need donation reform, and we need to start to think about how the influence of hospitality, donations to individuals are influencing parliamentary behaviour. As I said, I don't know of any other circumstance, and I'm happy to stand corrected on this, I don't know of any other circumstance where the personal debts of an individual senator, where that debt is owed to the Commonwealth of Australia, has been paid by what is effectively a very close entity of another sovereign government. This is not a case of raising a legal fund and crowdfunding it, or pursuing a staving off bankruptcy or anything else like that. This is a case of a seemingly minor debt. And like all giant scandals, they begin with just the tugging of the one thread. And I suspect that there is a giant scandal here. And until we can get to the bottom of it, and until Senator Dastyari will fully disclose and can assure the people of Australia and the people of this chamber and the Parliament that there is nothing untoward in this or anything else that he's done, he needs to stand aside. It gives me no pleasure to do that and say that, but it is the integrity of this place that is more important in the eyes of the Parliament, in the eyes of the people, than anything else. We can have our disagreements on policy views, we can call each other names, we can do a whole range of other things, but the fact that there's even a whiff, a hint that there may be some corrupt practices going on is enough to justify our concern. The crisis of confidence in politics is universal because people are in it, seemingly, for themselves rather than for the people they're meant to represent. We need to change that. We need to change it, and we can start changing it by getting to the bottom of exactly what has transpired here.
Senator Cameron.